Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio number 38, Feminist Faith. I'd like it to be noted that we have finally started on time. I think this is the first time in ever, possibly.
And we only just assembled. It was magical. It was like the Power Rangers.
Yes, Power Rangers assemble. Oh, did they do forms? Form of? No, that's the Wonder Twins. Because we could be.
They did Zords. It's an assonant word to forms.
Ah, Zords.
We're a Badger Zord, you see.
A Badger is. Oh, that sounds a little bit sinister.
It is. Carry on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was waiting for somebody to jump in, save me from myself. You all can jump in now. I mean, I think everybody knows who we are. That was Mike.
Yes, hello.
Dr. Randomer Cam. And then there's Karen.
Is that guy again? I just, Mike.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's Mordrog.
Oh right, okay, all right, I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Right.
You can call me a rapist if you like. Hi, I'm a rapist.
You are actually first initial A, second initial R, apist.
Apist.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and then we also
ape people. I do ape people.
There you go. Then we also have Hannah.
I'm a figment of your imagination.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Anna.
Hello.
Hello. I take it. Okay, so yes. I didn't mean to be so dismissive, Hannah, but if you're in my imagination,
We did the bit just before we went on the air, so it feels like the bit's already been done. But yeah.
Yes.
No, do the bit. I wasn't party to the bit. All these in jokes, and I'm not even part of them.
Are you sure we did the bit and you weren't just imagining it?
That's possible. What?
Or maybe I'm a figment of your imagination's imagination. Or maybe
My imagination has no imagination.
Or maybe it only does in my imagination's imaginary figment.
Okay. I'm going to say something really inappropriate, but this conversation has just reminded me of it. Have you ever actually had a dream, been sleeping, and had a dream where you were like, I'm dreaming about sex, and so I'm going to masturbate, and then you woke up and realized that you dreamed that you were masturbating while dreaming about sex?
Wait, what?
It's masterception. Baitception.
Baitception.
Happened to me twice this week.
I don't think I'd remember that even if it did happen.
That would make waking up
I
very
don't know.
frustrating. It would make waking up very frustrating.
It wasn't frustrating at all because I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm like a guy. I don't need to, if I'm dreaming, about sex, it'll just happen. I don't need to do nothing. But
Here we go. Radical Dreamer says that sounds like the porn parody of Inception.
it really was. It was really weird.
Sexception.
There we go.
But anyway, this whole my imagination doesn't have an imagination thing.
We need to have a movie made based on this concept.
I think so.
Or fan fiction.
Or both.
There must be a porn version of Inception out there somewhere, and that's exactly what it's done, right?
Okay. All right. So the topic tonight is, again, feminist faith, and we're going to be examining the parallels between feminism and religion. So I think this is probably going to be, to date, one of our most offensive actual shows. I think the others might chime in, but I have a feeling.
I don't think it's going to be that offensive. I think it's only going to be offensive to the skeptic feminist.
Oh, ouch! Shots fired.
Because they get really mad when you compare feminism to religion.
I don't know, some religious anti-feminists also get mad when you compare religion and feminism.
Yeah, but except for here's the thing. Here's the defense, and here's the consolation that you can give those religious people so that they won't be offended. Is that religion actually admits it's a religion. Religion actually admits that it's based on faith. It actually admits that one of the fundamental principles of religion or theism is that you believe in something for which you have no proof.
Yeah.
When they say educate yourself, they point towards a particular book That's what they mean when they say educate yourself. The only difference is feminists don't point to anything in particular, just say educate yourself.
But they also say, feminists also say, what we believe in is not based on faith. We have all of this proof. Look at all of this, and it's in the universities, and it's being taught. It's an entire academic discipline. If we were a religion, we wouldn't be allowed to like stick our little fingers into the government, right? It is a religion, but it will not admit that it's a religion, and that is why it's so dangerous. I mean, religions are, there's separation between church and state. There's all kinds of safeguards against religions coming in and, turning a country into a theocracy, at least a Western country. There is no safeguard. There's no barrier between feminism and the government because feminism will not admit it's a religion.
Well, yeah.
More dangerous than Trump. I'm serious.
That needs to be a hashtag. Hashtag more dangerous than Trump.
Speaking of Trump, like earlier today when we were doing the Ragening, the Rant Zerker, I just finished like filming 3 Ragenings. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. When we were doing the Rant Zerker, someone in the chat says that they're gonna get a sex doll of Trump, with Trump's personality. I guess so that they can have sex with Trump.
No, probably so that they can be like, yeah, Trump, you're not getting any.
Oh, just keep him in the closet. All right, okay.
Halloween costume.
What's on his head?
We went shopping for like Halloween shit in somewhere in Saskatchewan, and there was actually like masks that just said "Millionaire Tycoon," but it was blatantly Donald Trump.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's begin.
I almost want him to be president just for the humor factor.
Yeah, just for the lulz.
Yeah.
He's literally a WWE.
Really not a good reason to vote for somebody, but.
Oh, I think it's awesome. Probably as good as any. Considering the state of U.S. politics, it's probably as good as any.
Hashtag anyone but Hillary.
Okay, guys. Let Anna speak.
I was gonna say they're all picked from the same pool of 300 skull and bones people, and then ultimately become a puppet when they get into not a puppet, but obviously from Obama talking about closing Gitmo, and it's still open, and a variety of other things that he's doing. In fact, the drone strikes and other things have killed more people and done more CIA enabling in other countries than during the Bush administration. So clearly, whatever they tell you during the campaign doesn't fucking matter. They are all pretty much liars. Somebody who can make it as far in the government as to be president, no. But Trump, definitely for the lulz. He's literally a WWE character. He has like his own page and everything. We're at this point in our politics. We're literally electing WWE characters.
For the lulz. What the hell?
It looks like it's a drunken bet. Like everyone's been going anyone but Hillary. Absolutely anyone in the world but Hillary. All right. My money's on the table now. What about Donald fucking Trump? And Trump's like, all right, I'm gonna do this.
All right, guys. Let's do the topic. I know that U.S. politics is like it just goes everywhere.
Yeah.
It just ends up being the topic of everything. But that's not exactly Trump is not the topic.
It's liquid. That's why. As soon as you spill it, it just runs everywhere, soaks into everything. You can't get it out. It's permanent stain.
Yeah.
Milk also, it stinks after a while. So you can't.
Yes. Festers and rots.
I'm gonna start this off with actually a writing that was sent in by Theron Mayer, and I think I've successfully convinced her to turn this into a video because it's quite a bit longer than what I'm going to be able to read today, but it's excellent and it's going to make I think it's going to make a really great video. And it has a lot of personal testimony that I thought would work a lot better if she said it rather than me. But I thought, in general, this lays a great groundwork for a discussion tonight of how feminism resembles religion. So this is Feminist Religion by Theron Mayer. Mayor. Or is it Mayer or Mayor?
It might be Meyer.
Meyer.
Meyer, isn't it? Or it might be Mayer.
Theron Meyer. I apologize, Theron. I think I got your first name right finally, though. Okay, epistemology is the study of how we come to know what we know, especially with regards to its limits and validity. Throughout history, there have been 2 leading, often competing and conflicting epistemologies: science, based on the scientific method, and religion, based on faith. The scientific method describes the principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge involving the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data through observation and experiment, the formulation and testing of hypotheses, the construction of theories, and the improvement of said theories based on new information obtained through the iteration of said principles and procedures. Faith, on the other hand, can be described as the unwavering belief in a hypothesis or set of hypotheses that have failed the test of the scientific method. Therefore, religion is a personal set or institutionalized system of unchanging and stationary attitudes, beliefs, and practices that are held or adopted by subjects based on the faith that such attitudes, beliefs, and practices have been ordained by one God, multiple gods, or some higher power or authority. From my observations, feminism operates inordinately more closely to a religion than it does to a science. The crowning glory of all parallels between feminism and religion, however, is the good old unfalsifiability fallacy, which is when a theory or hypothesis is devised such that it cannot be contradicted by the scientific method. Logically fallacious gives a witty examples as follows. I have tiny invisible unicorns living in my anus. Unfortunately, these cannot be detected by any kind of scientific equipment. Typical unfalsifiable sophistry from some religious folks may manifest as follows. Non-religious person. I have never seen, felt, or experienced God or the consequences of God's actions in my life. Everything I've seen, felt, or experienced can be better explained through reason, logic, and the scientific method. Religious person. Well, that must be because you haven't accepted God into your heart. However, the only way of measuring whether one has accepted God into one's heart is if one sees, feels, or experiences God or the consequences of God's actions in one's life in the first place. Not only is this logic circular, but it cannot be proven wrong in any way. Feminists seem to borrow such tactics from religious folks in the following way. Non-feminist woman. I have never seen, felt, or experienced the patriarchy or its consequences in my life. Nothing I've seen, felt, or experienced denotes to me that I am part of an oppressed class. Feminists. Well, either you have unconsciously assimilated your oppression and suffer from internalized misogyny, or you haven't been properly trained to spot the patriarchy. The parallels between religion and feminism must not be identified in order to denigrate people of faith. Personally, I don't see any problem with holding personal beliefs that fail the scientific method, so long as it remains exactly that. Personal. Epistemology, that is, how we come to know what we know, is a complicated matter, and the scientific method is far from perfect. However, it is the best method we have. Most of Western civilization has quite successfully established a clear separation of church and state in order to ensure that beliefs which fail the scientific method are not universalized and enforced upon others. Unfortunately, there is no such separation protecting us from the cult of feminism. All right. I like this as a sort of a starting off point. I don't necessarily agree with the estimation that faith is an unwavering belief in a hypothesis or a set of hypotheses that have failed the test of the scientific method. In many cases, belief can be based on something that just can't be tested.
Faith in humanity, for instance.
Yeah.
It's hard to measure.
Well, also we have a sort of a base level of faith in a lot of things. Like you believe a chair will hold you up. You believe that when you go outside, you have these expectations that could also be likened to, you don't personally test it every single day. You just trust it to work.
So we could basically say that faith is a belief in that which has been and that is not tested, a belief without testing, belief without evidence, in other words.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the essence of faith. Is just belief without evidence. It's not so much the fact that it's failed the test. It's the fact that it is untested or untestable,
and that it hasn't been required to pass the test.
Mm-hmm. So, and this is one of the things that, like, I don't have any problem with people who are religious, with people who believe in a higher power. If they don't push it on me, or if they're like my mother-in-law and they only do it every so often, and try and tell me that, oh, I've got another 30 years to save your soul before you burn in hell, if it's not like really, really egregiously in your face all the time, I have no problem with it. And if it's not forming the basis of a code of law or policies or whatever, I have no problem whatsoever with it. The issue with patriarchy is it really is as untestable as God. I mean, you say say your child got cancer and then just kind of went into spontaneous remission. Oh, God did that. It works in mysterious ways. You know, a volcano erupts and kills a whole bunch of people. God works in mysterious ways. No matter what happens, it's God and he works in mysterious ways, but he has a plan, right? And it's the same with patriarchy. It seems like, you know, back when men got the kids, that was patriarchy. When women got the kids, that's patriarchy too. You know, no matter what situation you have, it's always down to patriarchy.
And patriarchy is supported with circular reasoning. You have, you know, patriarchy is supposedly evidenced by men holding the positions that feminists are willing to acknowledge are positions of power. They don't acknowledge the power of social pressure when they talk about these as positions of power. But then when you start they'll actually they'll actually act like women are being kept out of these positions, and then when you demonstrate that women have the capacity to put themselves in these positions or strive for these positions the same way that men do, and they don't do it, then they claim that they can't get in there because women are oppressed, and then you get into the circular reasoning on women being oppressed. You know, evidence that women are oppressed exists in the form of domestic violence against women and so on and so forth. But when you prove those things happen to men, it's worse for women because women are oppressed.
Oh, yeah, no, and you say, well, okay, Margaret Thatcher, and then they say, well, she only got where she did because she behaved like a man.
Yep.
Well, maybe that's the case. Maybe there is an aspect of masculinity, some kind of common trait among males that is uniquely suited to that
leadership
kind of position.
Leadership?
Not just leadership, but the kind of sacrifice and the kind of risk you have to go through to get there.
Yeah.
Right, being willing to do that.
And for a sociological standpoint, maybe there's an association with moral typecasting with men that isn't necessarily gender specific, or maybe is, doesn't matter. But there's an association with men that makes them capable of managing. I mean, the thing is that if you look at something that requires a certain type of behavior, and say men evince it, well, do they evince it because they're men, or do they evince it because that particular thing requires that behavior in order to accomplish?
Well, and are we attributing that behavior to men because we pay attention to it when men do it, but we don't pay attention to it when women do it, or we dismiss it or excuse it when men do it? You know, or women do it, I mean, or treat it differently depending on who's. Just like back to that research on domestic violence. I've mentioned this recently, I think, in discussion on Twitter, that in feminist research, when they look at behaviors that they consider to be coercive control as far as abusive behaviors, they'll call them that when men do them. But when women do them, they call it preemptive self-defense.
Well, but one of the really interesting things, somebody posted a link on Our Men's Rights, and it was like, I don't know, God, a year ago or more. It was a survey of psychologists, and the psychologists were asked to decide whether a specific behavior was abusive or not. And all the survey did was change the pronouns, the he or the she, right? And the exact same behaviors, when done by women, were half as likely to be seen as abusive by these psychologists as when they were done by men in the little scenarios that they were reading.
Well, kind of like, you know, if you look at a man slapping a woman differently than you would look at a woman slapping a man. You know, women are perceived as doing something because of something the man did. Men are perceived as doing something because they're abusive.
Mm-hmm. Well, the cause always originates in the man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, so this is.
I really like that piece of Theron's, though. I like that. I mean, she really does sort of get the requirement, the listen and believe requirement of feminism. And Janice Fiamengo called it theofeminism. It absolutely 100% requires that you believe women's experiences of sexual and domestic violence.
Yeah,
Or at least their stories.
I wanted to say something in response to what Anna had said about, you can't just rely on, at some point you have to have faith. I have to say that I have a lot more faith in people who are open to criticism and don't put up walls of emotional blackmail around their concepts or theories or what they know or believe to have happened in history. Like, I have a lot more faith when they're willing to deal with you with that. It's interesting because internet trolls are really cueing in on this sort of fragility, this emotional, what is the word for it? It's like an emotional reactionaryism, and they tend to troll these people for the lulls. But what's interesting is I find the people who don't react with that kind of reactionism towards the things that they believe and the ideas that they advance and the facts that they put out, I find them more reliable. Because I get the feeling that when you're buttressing your worldview with these emotional triggers and these words and emotional manipulations, that you haven't thought through your worldview. And you're not basing it on rationality. You're basing it on your ability to extort agreement from other people with your emotional lambasting. Maybe that was too abstract, so everyone's quiet. But there you go. That's something that so it's a quality of how people present their information that I think I respond to. If they're trying to do it in a way that they're extorting me emotionally to believe as they believe, then I have a tendency to just get a little bit like I don't know, I don't agree with, I don't believe you. Right off the bat, I don't believe you. It could be that they're advancing something completely true. But if they do it in a way where they're trying to extort compliance through emotional manipulation, it feels dishonest to me.
It damages their credibility.
Yeah, in my mind, it damages their credibility a great deal. And I think I've always sort of been that way. Whenever someone tries to get me to agree with something based on emotional reasoning, and it's really obvious, emotional reasoning is very obvious, it always really did not sit well with me. And it bothered me if it was something that I capitulated to, but I knew I could see logically that it was emotional reasoning. I would usually examine that part of myself that wants me to capitulate to their worldview, and I'd be like, why does that exist? Why is that there? It just doesn't feel native to who I am. And so anytime somebody does that, I tend to introspect, but I also don't believe them.
Well, on that note, there's actually been genetic differences found in people who believe social proof, who basically believe other people's beliefs, or those who actually find out things for themselves. So there's a marked genetic difference between those two types.
It's not necessarily a property just of religious argument. It's sort of common, but there are, scientific arguments that follow that sort of emotional reasoning level. A lot of time the sort of global warming stuff comes with a lot of emotional reasoning about animals and what have you. And there's some religious people that don't come with emotional reasoning. They just give you a story about from their mythology or something. It's as good as an anecdote, and it sort of works. But
Agreed. Like the religious people that I can be like, even just the two Mormon guys. I was waiting for the bus. Yeah, because I actually was taking a bus like a chump, because my car was in the shop. So I'm waiting for the bus, and there's these two guys, and they're very well dressed, and so I'm already sort of suspicious, right? Because they're wearing ties, and it's like freaking 39 degrees Celsius out in the middle of summer, and
you know it's coming.
Yeah. No, and they're just like, oh, do you know when the bus is coming? And how you doing? And blah blah blah. And they just chatted, and we just chatted. We just had a nice chat. And then I get on the bus, and before they got off the bus, they handed me their materials, and I was like, oh, thank you very much, and off they go. And it was just a really nice interaction. It was like, they're not pushing anything on me. They're not trying to guilt me into talking to them or giving them the time of day. We're just having a nice talk. That's the kind of thing, that would actually make me think, well, this actually seems like kind of a nice religion. You know, maybe I should look into that if I'm religiously inclined.
Well, what I look at with a lot of religious texts um, is I see them as being sort of a guideline, and I may be actually completely opposed to everybody in this panel, but I see them as sort of like a guideline with living with this powerful theory of mind that we have. It may not be as efficient in this day and age, that particular thing, but I have found a lot of wisdom in terms of dealing with different personalities, dealing with different kind of situations among like older texts and in mythology and stuff. There's wisdom to how to interact when we all have this very, very powerful tool, which is a theory of mind, and how to manage it and how to live with it. And it's like there's some serious detriments to it, and I think in some ways religion can help us deal with those. Not that I'm particularly religious, but I can see the function and the purpose of a lot of this stuff. And there's also, like I said, there's a lot of wisdom in the religious teachings that I've read. There's a lot of bullshit too. And I don't call myself religious because I'm not going to believe anything wholeheartedly. But for example, the whole concept of a sinner getting into heaven before the self-righteous man. I never really understood that until I really interacted with feminists.
Yeah.
The self-righteous people, and this is from a religion that said this.
Yeah.
Self-righteous people can justify anything to themselves.
Yeah.
They can justify any kind of sin, any kind of depredation, any kind of to visit it on other people in the name of their self-righteousness.
Yes, absolutely. And and I agree with you that, and I've said it before multiple times that religion performed a particular function. I mean, it certainly it originated in humans questioning of why and how. Why are we here and how are we here? And at that time, we had not advanced towards anything remotely like this, a scientific method that could answer those questions or even approach answering those questions. So we made up stories to explain how and why. And I think, like this is coming from an atheist who thinks that religion has value. It has some bullshit, but it also has value. That it's the fundamental questioning of how and why we are that leads people to to a religious perspective, right? They want it. People want to know what our purpose is, or most people want to know why we're here. Like, what are we doing here? There has to be something more than just you're born, you live, you go on some diets, and you die. Like people want that, and I think that's okay that they want that, and if religion can give that to them, then give it to them in a way that's helpful to them and helps them negotiate relationships with the rest of the world. And I think that religion largely has done that. It has also fucked things up majorly as well, but I think that if religion is a construction of the human mind, right? If there is no God, as atheists claim, if there is no God, then religion is not the problem. Because if religion was invented by man, right, by humans, then it's humans that are the problem. It's not religion. It's not belief in God. That's the problem.
Well, where religion tends to try to explain cosmology, I think that's better for science. But in a lot of cases, these, the ancients had the art of living with people in extremely dire circumstances and trying to get a way of managing, diverse personalities in difficult conditions. So there's probably something worth in there in terms of the wisdom tradition, in terms of understanding where people go wrong, where people are fallible, and understanding how to just deal with your fellow person and live with this very powerful theory of mind, which can be quite a burden sometimes. But when it becomes a way of a way of judging other people and casting them out, the self-righteousness, which is exactly spoken out against in the Bible, then it turns to its darkest aspects. And I don't, when I look at feminism, I see just the darkest aspects.
Yeah.
It's just the dark. It doesn't seem to have any wisdom at all.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, there's a difference between wisdom and then the one is used for control, and the other one is religion was originally a way. It was basically the proto-science. It was a way to figure out what the hell is going on in the world and how we can live here. Like not eating pork. In the Bible, the God right in the Bible will punish you if you eat pork. Well, that's because there's trichinosis. It's a disease of muscles you can get. You have extreme pain. It's horrible. Or like the Bible says, don't have not pregnant, but don't have sex with a woman when she's on her period, because that actually can lead to infections and like worse issues than that, because the cervix is partially open during that time. Or anal sex is an abomination, because that can also lead to problems. So it did come from a way of trying to figure out the world around them, and they had no better word for what happened to them as a consequence other than God did it. But there's a very big difference between having this way of trying to understand the world versus using some idea of hell or heaven in a way to coerce other people to do what you want them to do. There's very marked difference between the two, and one is wisdom and the other one is, I guess, religion, like with a bad capital R.
Well, to be honest, belief systems in general are like that. And I mean, what I've gathered from just from experience with looking at different belief systems is that they all have the capacity. If they've got the capacity to become dogma dominant, then they have the capacity to be exploited by authoritarian leadership, especially charismatic authoritarian leadership, in the same ways that religion and politics have throughout history. And you could almost make it a formula. A belief system with a capacity to become dogma dominant, plus an authoritarian attitude and a charismatic leader leads to mass murder.
Goodness.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, like any other ideology, it has the capacity to be taken over by people who, there is really a difference between belief and sort of that quiet faith that so many people have that I appreciate, and the kind of hubris of knowing what's best for everybody. There really is. I mean, like it really is the authoritarianism of feminism that terrifies me.
Well, the idea that they know what's right, and
it doesn't matter who gets fired, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter, which rape hoax turns out to actually, to be a hoax or whatever, right? It's all to serve the narrative.
Yeah, Mike piped up there for a second, so I just want to make sure he got the chance to talk.
It was something in response to what Anna said, but I've forgotten what it was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh goodness.
About charismatic leaders and
Anna, not Hannah.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, and I can't recall what Anna said. Well, it turns into a blur in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, when I lose it, I've lost it. Usually.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, we won't try to fish around in your brain for it, because that would be sort of messy. So let's, Anna, why don't you take it away with your first reading?
Alrighty. So, what is religion? Sociologist Durkheim defined religion as the unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. By sacred things, he meant things that are set apart and forbidden, beliefs and practices which unite into one single moral community called a church, all those who adhere to them. So why can feminism be considered a religion? Let's go over a small list of doctrines that are shared between feminism and religious thought. It has a list of blasphemous ideas that are disallowed. Believe in any of these concepts deemed as blasphemous and risk group expulsion and ostracization. Some of the more prominent of these ideas in feminism are patriarchy and rape culture. Just like questioning if Jesus was really the Son of God who performed miracles, the slightest hint at questioning the existence of patriarchy is quick and surefire way to be a pariah, an apostate. It calls for unification of belief. Quote, an apostate is the vilest of all the creatures in the eyes of God. Feminist apostates are, or even women who simply do not think of themselves as feminists, are bullied and socially crucified until they repent and come back to the fold, no matter how famous or powerful they are. Prominent examples of this include Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Beyonce, Susan Sarandon, and Vanessa Hudgens, among others. We the Honey Badgers, as the ultimate feminist apostates, and especially Allison, suffered firsthand from exclusion and attack during Calgary Expo last year. And recently I personally was terminated from my position as a cosplay model for disagreeing with rape culture. Another prominent anti-feminist and political candidate, Lauren Southern, was put on a public enemy #1 list and nearly fired from a political party for disagreeing with the existence of rape culture in the West. It calls for unquestioning belief, as proposed by Anita Sarkeesian's call to listen and believe women instead of critically examining presented claims. Other women and feminists have taken it further and called for faith in absence of evidence, in what some would call a landmark of religion. And here's a tweet from Nicole that says, Nicole redacted, you shouldn't ever need proof to believe a rape victim, no matter the circumstances. And that's the end of mine.
Thanks, Anna.
There you go.
We got too many Annas in here.
We got Anna, like making love to a bag full of spanners. Anna. Sorry.
You just called me Cherry Phil.
Anorexia.
Oh my God.
Oh, God. That happens to me though. Everywhere I go, I get mixed up with other people that have Anna in their name, or even Anne. So
we need to get more Welsh with our H's.
Yeah, there we go.
I think my boyfriend's boss called me Carol for the entire Christmas party. And you know what? He woke up the next morning so hungover, and he texted my boyfriend and said, "Did I call your girlfriend Carol the entire time last night?"
I used to get called Heather by my patients that I took care of when I worked in the nursing homes, because at the time that was a much more common name than Hannah. You know, there was no Hannah Montana, and so people weren't naming their kids Hannah, and I always just answered to it.
There you go. You just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and to answer to Anna's what she put out about apostasy in feminism. Yeah, and what's interesting is that despite the fact that feminism says it advocates for women's benefit, if it will get a woman fired for disagreeing, ejected from a social event from disagreeing, it will hound women, harass women for disagreeing, and it will do everything in its power to make it uncomfortable or impossible for women to disagree with it. It's not, and it bases itself on benefit to women. That's not accepting women's free speech and freedom of expression and right for them to do what they will and what they want with their lives within reason, without hurting other people. I mean, how can it simultaneously? Because it will do that. It would destroy every woman that disagreed with it, and it would justify it by saying, "Oh, internalized misogyny." How can it say that it supports women and not its own ideology? I mean, at the end of the day,
blasphemer.
Well, okay, but
your shirt is offensive.
Here's the thing: women with internalized misogyny, one would think that they would be the women who have internalized a hatred of themselves from the culture, that they would be the most pitiable of women. They would be the ones that would be deserving of the most compassion because they have internalized this belief in their own inferiority and a hatred of themselves, right? And yet feminism uses the accusation of internalized misogyny as a justification to attack those women as if they are, enemies, as if they are stronger, as if they are greater, as if they are more invulnerable, right? As if they are the ones who are in power rather than the victims of internalization of cultural attitudes about themselves, right? So they're at the same time that they're attacking these women, right, with everything they've got, showing them absolutely no mercy. They're also saying that we're doing it because they are the ultimate victim of our society,
doing it to save their souls from eternal damnation.
I think so.
Well, it's really curious about all that, because what I've noticed in personal experience with living in the South of the United States, especially, there's very large religious gatherings there. And there's this interesting dynamic even in families where they believe that their extended family and even perhaps their immediate family are going to hell, but they are not. There's this kind of idea that unless they believe every single little thing, like, unless you believe exactly how I believe, you're going to hell. And I would like to quote Dworkin here, because she actually said that feminism is a political practice of fighting male supremacy on behalf of women as a class, including all the women you don't like, including all the women you don't want to be around, including all the women who used to be your best friend whom you don't want anything to do with anymore. It doesn't matter who the individual women are. So here we have one of their, priests, which Dworkin was, and you see a lot of that in religion where people don't actually read the Bible themselves. They just kind of listen to what the preacher tells them, and they kind of believe the interpretation of the preacher, and in whatever little church they belong to. And so we have that, one of the preachers kind of telling you, hey, believe other women and support other women regardless of what they're doing, but the individual feminists are like, no, unless it doesn't conform to exactly what I believe, then I have to throw it out, because basically God is themselves. God is their own feelings and their own thoughts. And Vikings, for instance, the show, it proves a really great example of that, where you have people really strongly having emotions about something, and the stronger they believe it themselves and the more they're invested emotionally in something, the stronger they believe the gods want it. So whatever the idea they have in their heads, it's like, well, God must have put it there. I must believe it so strongly because God wants it. So ultimately, they are God.
I want to touch back on the topic of internalized misogyny again, because I think that concept is kind of interesting. Just from the standpoint of picturing what a woman who actually had internalized hatred for her own gender would, how would that woman behave, right? If she really honestly believed that women were inferior and men were superior, she would do things like claiming not to have the agency to speak up for herself, and expecting that men would speak up for her. She would do things like blame any circumstance on men, any circumstance that involved her on men, because clearly if she's inferior, she doesn't have the capacity to control the situation. The man is in control, and therefore everything is his fault. And she would advocate for men to be especially solicitous of women in circumstances where a woman might be agreeing to something that she doesn't completely understand, or maybe can't handle herself in. If she feels inferior and she thinks that women can't maybe make their own decisions, then she would start talking about a culture in which any behavior that men exhibit that is sexual in nature is an attack on women. She might consider that to be a rape culture. And internalized misogyny, as feminists describe it, is probably the biggest example of projection in their ideology.
I think so. I think, honestly, it's also the idea of what feminism has always been a rejection of the feminine role, right? The restrictions on it. I mean, they've never rejected the restrictions on the male role. They've never rejected the expectations that have been placed on men that benefited women.
Of course not, because if they do that, then they have to stop pretending to be just inferior enough to deserve special treatment. I mean, if you really dig into the idea of feminism and you really dig into the things that they assert, and you look at the concept of internalized misogyny, the greatest expression of it is the feminist narratives on rape culture and domestic violence. Or they're sitting there basically saying women can't defend themselves because women are incapable of acting on their own behalf, and they have to be protected by male society and individual men because women are inferior, according to feminist ideology. But let me take that right on into my piece of writing, unless somebody has something. Allison, were you waiting to say something?
No, actually, I was waiting to introduce your piece of writing, so we're both on the same page here. Go for
Okay,
it.
good. Now I'm not gonna read it verbatim because I put a dictionary definition in there. But feminists love dictionary definitions when it suits their purposes. And I started mine with looking at Merriam-Webster's definition for religion and religious. And by the standards laid out between the combination of those two definitions, a religion can be defined as a personal set or institutionalized system of beliefs, attitudes, and practices relating to or manifesting faithful devotion to an acknowledged ultimate reality or deity. So there doesn't actually have to be a god or a goddess or gods or goddesses or anything like that, as long as there is faithful devotion to an acknowledged ultimate reality. Basically, a concept that is non-falsifiable or is taken on faith. And by this definition, feminism most certainly is a religion. Its ultimate reality is the assertion that women are a uniquely oppressed class. It's not always worded that way, but it's always discussed that way. And if you start talking about other classes being equally oppressed, particularly if you start talking about the fact that men are oppressed in exactly the same way as women are, based on feminism's definition of oppression, they get mad. Their belief in this religion's, the belief that the religion's faithful adhere to and defend, they do this despite significant evidence against it. And they've built several other elements of religion around it. The ideology's equivalent of morality is an existing social attitude, gynocentrism. And gynocentrism is essentially, the short definition of that is putting women first. In any given circumstance, in any given system, benefiting women is the primary goal before benefiting any other group. It's not named in feminism's dogma, but it's the underlying attitude involved in every aspect of it. Its gendering of human rights issues relies on presuming female experiences and interests uniquely relevant and meaningful, and women and girls uniquely deserving of relief or protection from adversity. The ultimate good is represented by women, but not as a manifestation of deity. Deity is where the religious attribute the ultimate demonstration of agency. So according to feminist dogma, that would have to be men. Patriarchy theory, the religion's sacred text, makes men evil gods, or both God and the devil, an entity with the power of deity, filled with malevolent intent, bent on preventing the ultimate good, women, from realizing its full potential. They are portrayed and discussed as if responsible for everything and uniquely guilty of inflicting adversity on women, yet accountable for providing relief from it. Women are portrayed and discussed as hapless, helpless victims, trying to get through life simultaneously dependent on the deity of male-run government and threatened by the devil of male oppression, making us feminism's only equivalent of religion's representation of humans. The concept of sin, especially blasphemy, is covered by the term misogyny, defined as hatred of women who, again, represent the religion's ultimate good. Feminist theory is also treated as holy scripture, unquestionable to its followers and therefore taken for granted as irrefutable. Those who don't subscribe to it are treated as heretics to be evangelized, assimilated, browbeaten into compliance, or ostracized for refusing the call. Arguments made to refute aspects of it are taken as illegitimate attacks on the church, which need only be treated as sin or blasphemy rather than rationally countered. The institutionalized system is feminism's own religious catechism, the academic body of work behind it, women's studies. Safe spaces are its churches, Take Back the Night rallies, and Slutwalks its tent revivals. And this combination of behaviors makes feminism an institutionalized faith-based system of belief in an ultimate reality, a religion.
Thank you, Hannah.
You might say the biggest mistake we made was like describing religion as a superstitious belief. Yeah, as in, making a division between superstitious beliefs and non-superstitious beliefs, where the line we really should have drawn is the difference between a morally pushed belief and a morally just lived belief.
I think I understand. I think weird, so maybe everybody else gets it, and I'm a little slow. But so what you're saying is that when people push their beliefs through like moral judgment and extortion, which
Yeah, that's what Hannah was talking about. The way feminism operates is exactly the same way religion operates at its darkest hour.
yeah,
It's not based on supernatural things. Did I say superstitious? Because I meant supernatural.
okay,
But yeah, it's the belief in the supernatural is not the point. We
No.
know we're at the point in history where we know that a belief in the supernatural is so not the problem. It's not the centerpiece of the problem at all. The desire to just judge people morally is the problem.
well,
Well,
the
the
use of the supernatural as a way of saying that I have the right to judge you, but the way feminists use patriarchy
yeah,
without acknowledging any kind of criticism, it's like that the fact that the patriarchy is everywhere, it surrounds you, it's inside you.
yeah.
It's a supernatural, like this is a supernatural thing. The way feminism talks about patriarchy, it's supernatural. And what I wanted to comment with what Hannah was saying is that essentially privilege is just equal to strength or agency. So patriarchy has granted men agency and strength, but feminism tells them unearned agency and strength. So this is what men have been granted in patriarchy is unearned privilege, unearned strength, unearned power, unearned ability to act, unearned agency, according to feminists. But that's just another way of saying that men are strong. But saying that they have been granted this unearned gives them a moral impetus to use that strength to benefit women. And it's so interesting because this is basically exactly the way we've constructed gender roles for a very long time. The idea that men are strong and women are the weaker vessel, so men must sacrifice their strength for women's benefit. And it's consistent with moral typecasting, the psychological idea that we cast men into the role of agent and women into the role of acted upon, and then we expect men's actions to be judged by women, how they're acted upon by women. And it's like I'm groping for something here. I'm not quite sure if I've got it.
It's a little bit like sort of judging the mammoth by saying you have unearned size. You've been granted this great size because we don't understand that the mammoth got that big by evolving, by striving to get, so to speak, bigger and bigger through evolution. And it's the same as looking at men and saying you have unearned strength. It's like, how do you think men got this strong?
Yeah.
By evolving.
But yeah, it's like, but by saying that but by setting this up, it perpetuates itself. By
Yeah.
saying that men have unearned strength, supposedly, which they must then sacrifice for women, you create the system of self-perpetuating because because you make men take responsibility for women. Where do you think the strength came from?
Yeah, no, it's a positive feedback loop. It just
Of insanity.
yeah, continues to feed itself. Round and round and round we go. Chicken, egg, chicken, egg, chicken, egg. Yeah, the chicken is only the vessel through which an egg produces another egg, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is pretty clever. George W. Bush, may the privilege be with you. Yeah, it's pretty much it. It's like the patriarchy grants, I don't know fucking how. Like, how does the patriarchy grant men anything?
Well, it grants men.
It works in mysterious ways.
It grants men and women different things through certain assumptions and expectations, right? So it restricts them with expectations. It grants them things through assumptions, right? So there is a greater assumption of competence in certain areas.
No, but you're talking about patriarchy, like you're talking about reality, which is
gender roles.
Yeah, you're essentially talking about gender roles in society. I'm talking about patriarchy as feminists imagine it.
Yeah, no. The patriarchy's feminists imagine it is like
Stare into the void with me, Karen. Stare into the void. Tumble down the rabbit hole.
It's the fucking Slender Man, right?
You know, Slender Man.
All it is. You know, it looks sinister. It hides in your freaking bushes and it jumps out and scares you. Like that's all it is. It's the monster in the closet. And this is what always got me about male feminists. And I wrote a blog post and it was about sort of it was about the atheism plus thing that was going on a few years ago and that essentially what men like P.Z. Myers are doing is they're actually they have taken up the cause of a bunch of women who are seeing things that aren't there, who are delusional, right? Who believe, they literally believe there is a monster under their bed. And instead of being a good parent or a responsible person and going in and saying, there's not actually a monster under your bed, just go to sleep, right? He's behaving like the abusive parent who convinces the child that, yes, there is a monster under your bed. It loves to eat little children.
And its name is Michael Shermer. Boom.
I will burn down this entire fucking house to protect you from that monster. You know,
I think I'd want another set of parents.
Hero, right? You'll call me a hero and you'll think that I'm really great.
Yeah, we're evolutionary wired to see monsters. Because, you know, recently we were monkeys in trees and there were literally fucking tigers and leopards and shit down there on the floor. So we've still got this leftover monkey shit in our brains where, yeah, this is a whole Joe Rogan routine actually that I keep stealing. But yeah, it's totally true. We still believe in a monster under the bed because there were monsters under the branches. Yeah. And it's our responsibility to teach people that there's no monster. And we're doing a good job of teaching men that there's no monster. But we're not doing a very good job of teaching women that there's no monster.
Or that sometimes they're the monster.
Yeah. Well, Mike, why don't we get you reading your piece? Because this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Have we finished with what were we talking about?
Yeah. Well, I've officially pulled the Karen train into
He's
state.
moved on.
Yes.
He's moved on, Mike. Get over it.
Let's move on.
Right. My thing's quite long. I've gone sort of around the houses, but I get somewhere and I sort of weave on the way there. So it's quite fun. I felt like I needed to give it a title, so I called it Religion and the Afterbirth of Authoritarian Ontology.
Lovely title.
I'm pretentious like that.
Lovely pretentiousness.
Okay. You might say religion is the study of the unknown. You might then remind yourself that all studies are the study of the unknown. That's what studying is. Both science and religion are studies of the unknown. So how are they so wildly different? Well, science is about deciphering which parts of the unknown are knowable, like why people get sick and how to make a building that doesn't fall down. And religion is about deciphering which parts of the unknown are unknowable, like God and fifis. And if you're a postmodernist, everything. What that pesky science goes and does is fill in the gaps that used to be explained by God. And this is why religion tends to shrink when science grows. And indeed vice versa. But science tends to overtake religion in a slow, steady upward curve, and religion tends to overtake science in a sudden downward plummeting motion. The clues are there when you look at the Latin origins of both words. Scientia actually means knowledge. And the lig in religion is the same as the lig in ligament, because religare means to bind, to tie up, which is interesting. And of course, no matter how much painstaking work the scientists do to fill in the gaps, it doesn't stop social justice warriors coming along, kicking out all the fillings and claiming they were never there, and then kicking even bigger gaps than before. So, throughout like recorded history, there have been individuals claiming to be experts on things that are intrinsically unknowable. Why on earth would such people exist, Mike? I hear you cry. Well, it's probably no coincidence that the people who anoint themselves experts on the unknowable just happen to have very strict opinions on morality, on how other people should conduct themselves, what they get to say, who they get to sleep with, who gets to raise the children, and which parts of your body you get to keep. But why would it make anyone an authority on morality just because they claim to be an expert on the unknowable, Mike? That doesn't make you an authority on anything, Mike. It just makes you a confidence trickster. I hear you cry. And yes, I know, stop yelling at me, character device in my head. This is all very much the point. You see, being a bully is actually a very difficult job. If you want people to do what you say and give you what you want for nothing, you will be met with a lot of resistance. We're not the kind of species that will put up with that. You can't just say, do this thing for me, and people will go, well, why? You can't even just physically shove people around. Someone will see you, and people will gather together and outnumber you and go, hey, you're ordering people around. On what basis are you ordering people around? What makes you so high and mighty? And at that moment, the bully faces the centerpiece of their existential crisis. You have a crowd of people stood before you. How do you justify making them do what you want for nothing? You can't say it's because I have scientific knowledge. They can simply respond, so do we. Science works the same way for everyone. That's what makes it science. Dang, you got me. Okay, if you don't do what I say, you're hurting the great juju. Yeah, we don't believe in the great juju. You're hurting the desert spirits. Yeah, we don't believe in the desert spirits. You're hurting God. We don't believe in God either. Oh. Well, in that case, you're hurting the women. Sort of my version of sky cake.
I don't even know what sky cake is. It sounds delicious, though.
It's a Patton Oswalt routine about how religion came about. Oh, sky cake. Well, it's my version of it.
Oh, cool. I'm completely clueless, but I will appreciate what you've done because I liked it. It was very impactful.
You see how I've eventually got around to the feminism.
Yeah, no, I see how you got around to the feminism, and yeah,
and how the feminism works exactly the same way in the old Abrahamic religion countries as it does over here.
But what's really
interesting... You don't believe in God? Oh, you're hurting the women. Huh?
What's really interesting is that feminism somehow has as its battle cry equality. So when someone gets up on their pulpit and says, you have to submit to me because of the women, it undoes itself, because you can turn around and say, well, what about the men? Of course, nobody listens, at least not initially. You have to go through the painstaking process of creating a society of people that will actually listen when you say, well, what about the men? But, I mean, at least there's the possibility, I suppose. Well, I groped a bit there.
You know, maybe.
I groped and a Karen came out.
But, you know, what I think is sort of an interesting question, right? Because we know what women's soft power through history looked like, right? It was the conversation across the pillow, right? Very, very often. And we know that Homer Simpson would rather be sleeping in and watching football on Sunday morning rather than being dragged to church by Marge.
If the man's the head of the family, the woman's the neck that turns it.
And we know that if you go into any church in the West, you're going to see a majority of very devoted women and a minority of men who are bored, distracted, really not interested in being there. Their wives made them come. Maybe they're having some massive problem in their lives, right? But they're not going to be there every Sunday. Do you think maybe the earliest adherents of all of these religions were actually women? And that they convinced their men across the pillow?
Actually, I can answer that question.
Who do you think invented language? Do you think that was necessarily men?
I can answer that question, Karen. At least in terms of Christianity. In terms of Christianity, the first adherents of Christianity were most definitely women. And in fact, if without the wealthy Roman widows that had a particular interest in Christianity never would have expanded and become what it does. Or without the Christian mothers who taught their sons to be Christian. Christianity would never be what it is today.
Also, it's likely if Jesus was an actual figure, there are evidence that he was supported largely by women. They gave him money.
Yeah.
We're taking the word of women that the whole resurrection thing happened.
Yeah.
They effectively wrote that part of the Bible because they dictated it.
That the Immaculate Conception happened.
Yeah,
Somehow.
it wasn't just that she like totally cucked Joseph. No.
Now, I will take issue with one thing, though. the statement that men get nagged into going to church always by their wives.
Not always.
That's kind of it's a very narrow view of churches. Churches have, especially Christian churches, have a very wide variety of attendees as far as the reasons why they are there. And there's there are plenty of people that go to those churches because they want to do what they think is right for their families and their communities. They want to find out how to be the best people they can be. There are people that are there because they're afraid if they're not there, they're going to go to hell. There are people that are there because they think other people won't accept them if they don't go to church. And there are people who are there because they can exploit the belief system for their bullying the same way that social justice types exploit the belief system for theirs. And those are just a small set. There's a lot of people that are there for a wide variety of reasons. but as far as the way churches are, it seems to be run by the women.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like if you go into any small church in the United States, most of the people who hold positions of responsibility are men. But the way they behave is based on what the women are what tongues are going to wag if they do something out of line, if they don't keep up with the things that are expected of them, if they don't maintain the traditions and standards of the church and things like that. And that's usually the women. It's usually the women's tongues that do the wagging. So the men are in positions of responsibility, but they still answer to the women.
And just to buttress, I think what Karen was doing was she was giving sort of a provocative anecdote. Statistically, if you look at the statistics about church attendance, they do have a man problem, which is that men don't want to attend or are leaving the church. In many cases, they leave at 18 when they finally away from their parents. But there's an exodus of men out. In fact, almost all religions are losing men quite rapidly. Maybe I don't know any statistics on Islam. That might not be true about Islam, but most religions are losing the interest of men, especially young men, which is, and you can see where they're going because atheism
Even
is
Buddhism?
mostly.
I'm pretty sure I'm seeing more and more sort of quasi-Buddhists popping up.
Yeah, well, I don't know
Does
about Buddhism.
Well, the
count?
question is, what's one of the things that's different about Buddhism? Does Buddhism differ from other religions in the manner or amount at which it treats men as disposable?
Well,
Because most religions do treat men as disposable in various ways, and among other things, like Christianity does expect it calls
Well, they
men
did,
in charge, but they're in charge in such a way of as to be in servitude to the women and their families.
they
But
didn't get kamikaze pilots from nowhere, did they?
well, that was Shinto probably.
It's
Oh,
still Buddhism.
No. Shinto
does-
is separate.
This is
separate.
what can happen with Buddhism. It can result in what Japan did in the Second World War.
Yeah, but Mike, Japan isn't necessarily Buddhist. They believe in Shintoism. It is separate from Buddhism. Now, there probably are
At the time, they
instances.
believed in Emperor Hirohito,
Yeah,
and he was a god,
okay.
according to the religion of Buddhism. This
Buddhism
is
believes
kind of
largely about in the equality of every living being. So there's a bit of that, not to mention a lot of mindfulness, which is kind of foreign to the female way of thinking.
Yeah, but
No.
this is sort of an aside. I just want to invoke moderator privilege and say that, like the discussion of whether or not Buddhism appeals to men, whether or not Buddhism or Shintoism was responsible for kamikaze pilots in World War II, and what exactly Buddhist practices are is sort of, well, you know what? Maybe it is relevant. I think.
Well, the reason I asked the question is because feminism inherently treats men as completely disposable and for the benefit of women, and I suspect that if that quality in other religions is causing men to abandon, and it's a non-mindful religion too. It's a religion in which men are expected to be mindful of everything they do, but women aren't. So it's not an equally mindful religion. And if those things are causing men to leave other religions in large quantities, I think at some point it's going to do the same with feminism, that feminist men are going to simply abandon the religion. They might get raised in it by their mothers, but aside from that, it's going to be harder and harder to get men to fall for that shit if they're going to get treated like that.
You want to know the one religion that's gaining a male audience?
Which one?
Odinism.
Oh, I can believe that.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
Man.
as a genuine religion, or just as in like writing Jedi on the census.
No, I guess I'm pretty sure they believe it genuinely. I think it's a native Norse religion. They're trying to reclaim their religion.
Are they calling it that, or are they calling it? I believe it's pronounced asatru.
You know what? I wouldn't doubt that you have a better information or grasp on this than I do.
Well, I have a friend that practices that.
Yeah, but that is the one religion around the world that's increasing.
It's a religion that celebrates masculinity.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
It celebrates men in every iteration that a man.
Not very fond of homosexuals, by the way.
No. Actually, really? I thought
Vikings
didn't give a shit.
really didn't like homosexuality.
Okay. They didn't like homosexuals, but the core aspects, the traditional aspects of men, and this is what men have been sort of, just released into the ether with no identity that they can be proud of, right? I mean, women don't have any identity at all because you can't impose any expectations or make any assumptions about women, otherwise you're a misogynist, right? So they don't have a cultural identity, right? Men have a cultural identity, but it's entirely negative. So I can absolutely see straight men being really attracted to a religion, a faith, that celebrates that kind of rough, gritty, beardy masculinity of old. I think that this is what the sort of neo-traditionalism movement is all about. It's, it's not just about serving the women and all of that. It's also about embracing a certain form of masculinity that existed, 100 years ago but doesn't seem to exist now, and to embrace it as a positive rather than as a negative, because feminism has been telling men that pretty much every aspect of masculine identity is negative.
Yeah, well, that's pretty true. Although I might untangle some stuff that you said there that I disagree with. I think it's not that women don't have an identity, because I think they have a very positive identity in the West. I think it's that they don't have an identity based on their personal choices. It's like that's complete void for women. It's all based on whether or not they have a hoo-ha. And
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's like there's no expectations or assumptions you can make about them other than that they have a vagina. That's it.
yeah, and then all you can do is give them a blanket respect based on the idea that they are more moral, more whatever,
They're just
better
like
people.
they're the little man in the canoe floating down a fucking river with no paddle. That's all they are. And they're happy, right?
Well, I don't know. I think there's a lot of women that have some discontent with this shit.
Okay, but you know, like they have an identity. They have an identity that has value. It's a little man in a canoe. And it's floating down a river completely aimlessly. And if anybody even suggests that, you know, the little man start paddling, then fuck you. Right? You're not.
Oh goodness.
The river should take me where it goes.
I got a control review.
Sorry.
I think you're going to have to probably pop in and pop out, because it sounds like your mic was getting progressively worse as I was listening. So you might want to try that.
Hear the word "right" repeated like 3 times there. That was
Yeah,
good.
I know. I did. It was like you pooped herself.
Oh my God! I only said right once.
I know, that's what's so brilliant about it.
Oh, okay.
It just caught me at the exact right time, eh? Or the exact right.
Right is your middle name, after all.
Yeah,
Girl Rights What?
but girl rights what? You got to drop
Men's
out
rights
of the call
advocate.
and come back in, and that'll probably clear all the problems up.
I already dropped out and came back in, and it didn't apparently clear all the problems up. Are they cleared up now?
Let's see. Nope, still echoing.
Motherfucker.
All right, let's get this. Okay, does anybody else have anything else to say with Mike? You always bring something really interesting to the table, and really well done, well acted. Yes.
When I've got an hour or so to script something, I'm quite good. Otherwise, if I don't write it down, I'll forget it like before.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, a couple days ago, someone was I think it was Scott, on the Nerd Revolt. He was building up to something, and then he was like, "Oh my God, I forgot it." It was like everybody was sitting there. It's just sitting there. I was just like, and he was like, "Oh my God, really?"
It's like the harder you try to remember it, the further it falls into the well.
It's gone.
Yeah, I've learned to write things up whenever someone's particularly verbose. I just kind of jot things down in a little chat thingy and never send it.
Okay. All right. Then that's a good plan too. I've been trying to do that as well. It is hard because people don't realize, you got a bit of adrenaline going when you're on one of these radio shows, which isn't really good for thinking. So if you feel like you're stupider than you usually are, let me see. So I just said something really stupid.
No, well, with me, it's not so much that I have adrenaline going or anything like that on these shows. It's more just that it takes a while to anchor the point. You have to anchor the point, and then by the time you're done anchoring it, you've forgotten the point that you want to make, and it's just a fuck. And if you're like me, I think probably it's people like us, the absent-minded professors of the world, who actually are capable of thinking in ways that other people aren't. And this is the price we pay, is that we forget what we just spent half an hour setting up.
And my problem is I'm paying attention to what's being said at the moment, and then what gets said after the thing that gets said that I want to respond to, and 3 chats, and then trying to keep track of the response that I wanted to make. So then when I get to that response, and I want to set it up, and of course you also are paying attention to, if I say this wrong, people will take part of it out of context and respond to that as something different than it was intended, and not part of the whole statement later on in the comment section when I'm not there to talk about it.
Well, you do that remarkably well.
That happens a lot.
You manage all of that very well, a lot better than I do. Like I'm just here for the ride, right? I don't know. I'm like, just blah, 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 blah. And people are like, yeah, okay. Okay, Allison, that's okay. You're okay. You're okay.
You're pretty much okay, Allison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Hoser.
We love you, man.
I
No
love
homo.
You. I love you. Yeah, no homo.
No
Can I
homo.
get my Bud Light?
Okay, Karen, you have got to drop and come back on.
Okay, I have to like actually close the call and come back on?
Yes,
I probably do. Okay. I'll be back in a minute.
we'll be okay. All right. So Karen will be back in a minute, and until that time, does anybody else have anything left to say on the subject of what Mike brought to the table? Silence, complete silence. Okay, I'll assume that's a no.
It was so long ago.
It was so long ago, and so Mike ago. All right, so why don't we get into the feminist quotes as compiled by Sean Jacobson, who is somebody who helps us with the blog team. He's a blog team member, as it were. He has the following to say: the following sentiments are wrong and reprehensible. We should all be Christians. Kill all Jews. The proportion of Jews must be reduced to and maintained at approximately 10% of the human race. Christians have their faults. Jews only have two: everything they say, everything they do. If life is to survive on this planet, there must be a decontamination of the earth. I think this will be accompanied by an evolutionary process that results in a drastic reduction of the population of Jews. The same-sex family must be destroyed. Whether its ultimate meaning, the breakup of families now, is an objectively revolutionary process. We are, as a species, infinitely superior to Negroes. The Negro is a domestic animal which, treated with firmness, can be trained to do most things. I don't want to explain to a 9-year-old Negro in terms he will understand why I think it's okay for white children to wear shirts that revel in their superiority over Negroes. All Negroes are rapists, and that's all that they are. So why are these sentiments allowed? We should all be feminists. Oh, God. Chimada Ngozi Adichie. Kill all men. Twitter hashtag. The proportion of men must be reduced to and maintained at approximately 10% of the human race. Sally Miller Gearhart. Women have their faults. Men only have two: everything they say and everything they do. Popular feminist graffiti. If life is to survive on this planet, there must be a decontamination of the earth. I think this will be accompanied by an evolutionary process that will result in a drastic reduction of the population of males. Mary Daly. The nuclear family must be destroyed. Whatever its ultimate meaning, the breakup of families now is an objectively revolutionary process. Linda Gordon. We are, as a sex, infinitely superior to men. Elizabeth Cady Stanton. The male is a domestic animal which, if treated with firmness, can be trained to do most things. Jilly Cooper. I don't want to be able to explain to a 9-year-old boy in terms that he will understand. I do want to be able to explain to a 9-year-old boy in terms that he will understand why I think it's okay for girls to wear shirts that revel in their superiority over boys. Trina Shapiro. All men are rapists, and that's all that they are. Marilyn French. All right.
Okay, the Marilyn French quote is not actually a direct quote from Marilyn French. It is a quote from a character in a novel that she wrote. So.
Yeah, in a novel that she wrote, that the entire
Yes.
goal of the novel was to paint men as domineering assholes who go through their entire lives oblivious to the fact that women are human beings.
Yes.
And it is constantly excused by feminists as a line that she included in the context of a rad fem character in her novel to show that radical feminism is bad. But the truth is,
no.
the entire novel, which I read, unfortunately, but the entire novel was a sales pitch for radical feminism.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not saying that I don't think that this is not how she feels, but it is something that drives me crazy, like these little logistical errors that trip us up. I mean, it's one of those things that they can say, well, she didn't actually say that. And so I almost wish that people would stop using that one particular quote, because there are so many. There are so many other quotes that are just as juicy and just as lovely and just as man-hating as that have come from radical feminists, or main feminists that are taught in women's studies courses. Brown Miller, right? Rape is the process by which all men keep all women in a state of fear, right? She was the one who came up with the idea, right? With the theory that it was when men learned that they could use their penises as weapons to keep women terrorized and subjugated, that was when they learned the process of oppression and what it could offer them. And from that from the fruit of that first tree that men cultivated, right? That fruit, their hatred of women, that was the fruit from which all other oppressions sprang. Tribalism, racism, religious persecution, political persecution, all of these other forms of oppression, they all were built on the model of misogyny that men learned when they figured out that sometimes women don't like getting dicked, right? That's just fucked up, right?
Well, and it's
plenty fucked up.
It's funny too, because to be honest, if the reason behind that wasn't that women's sexuality was given a special place, that women's sexuality wasn't pedestalized and actually used by women as part of their ability to maneuver for social position, then that concept would always have gone both ways. It would always have been thought of as rape if somebody forced sexual contact unwanted on another person, regardless of sex. But throughout history, it's only been treated that way when the victim is a woman, because women are special.
Oh yeah,
and because the damage that is attributed to it is different based on how women use their sexuality in ways that men don't.
Of course, absolutely, 100%. The idea of, but what bothers me about that entire thing is that what they want to do when they are saying that misogyny was the first oppression, and all other oppressions were built on the model of misogyny, is they really do, and this is something that Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony and a bunch of suffragettes all talked about, that women were they essentially said we're the new Negroes, right? We're the new Negroes. Women are the new slave class, right? We are the ones now who, like the Negro, have been enslaved, right? And yeah, no, fuck you and the horse you rode in on, you stupid fucking cunt. There is nothing that's remotely comparable. Like, did a slave owner have an obligation to dress his slave the way he dressed himself, shelter his slave the way he sheltered himself, share with his slave his social status and the benefits of his income and his protection, right? Did the slave owner owe that slave a lifetime, right, of devotion with no selling, let alone no divorce, let alone selling, right, without just cause? Like, was a slave owner, was a man able to treat his wife, the whole idea that women were considered property, the property of men? Oh yeah, so you got a broken hammer, you take it to the dump. Yeah, could a man take his wife to the dump and get away with it? Could he? And just fucking leave her there? Just like take her by the hand and take her over to the fucking compost heap, the town freaking midden heap, and just leave her there and say, yeah, no, I'm done with you. You're broken. Like,
feminists would have an argument for that, because they forget that what could be done historically went both ways. There was a time when you could take your spouse to a mental institution and basically have them incarcerated.
You can still do that.
Well, not the same in the United States. You could keep your spouse incarcerated for years without evidence as long as you could pay a doctor to say the right thing. And it really is a lot more difficult to do that now.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of evaluation takes place now.
Yeah,
And,
no, you're right.
and
You're
both
right.
men and women who did that to their spouses.
Yeah.
Feminists only talk about the women who experienced it.
Oh, you ever read one of those freaking like Fact Check Me or Cherry Blossom Life, one of those blogs, right? Those freaking really fucked up radical feminists who used to like comment and participate on RadFemHub. And they talk about gynecology as essentially they talk about gynecology the way they talk about heterosexual sex, like PIV is always rape, okay, right? Well, they talk about gynecology and obstetrics in the exact same way. That literally gynecology and obstetrics are a field, a fake field, a field full of just chicanery and charlatans and quackery, right? That only exists so that men essentially can stick their fingers up women's vaginas. And control their reproduction.
They do know that there are female obstetricians, right?
But it's a male. It was a field created by males.
Yeah. And I had one tell me the other day that that maternal deaths following childbirth skyrocketed because of it. I looked into it and found out that there were not actually statistics to back that up because there were not statistics from the time. They don't actually have evidence of that. They just have hearsay, and that it can be attributed not to that specific field, but to the fact that as we transitioned from folk medicine to scientific medicine, we had to go through a learning process wherein we discovered germ theory, and people did not know to wash their hands. And actually it was a man who figured out that hand washing was necessary.
Ignaz Semmelweis died in a mental institution.
Yep. But today there's a significant issue of maternal death from midwives doing home births, failing to consider conditions that would better be treated in hospitals, where women are having bigger babies because they have better nutrition, and they're ending up, their bodies are not able to deal with the bigger babies that they're having. And that was my situation. My baby was 9 pounds. I was not built to open up for a 9-pound baby, and had I not been in the hospital, I wouldn't be here, and neither would he.
Well, with my first two, home birth probably would have been just fine. With my third, he was 11 pounds and change, and his umbilical cord was tied in a knot.
But according to the Church of Feminism, this stuff is all unnecessary. According to the Church of Feminism, we don't know what we're talking about. According to the Church of Feminism, because these things are not the rule, they can't exist.
Yeah. Oh,
there are
man.
no exceptions. There's only the rule and things people made up. Hashtag shit that never happened.
Honestly, like when you look at male developments in obstetrics, right? Cesarean section that was developed by men. When you look at forceps delivery, that was developed by men. Vacuum apparatus developed by men. So
the equipment used to monitor the health of the mother and the baby.
Yeah, fetal heart monitors and stuff like that. Yeah, developed by men. All of the technologies to prevent pregnancy in the first place, hormonal birth control, right? Developed by men. I don't understand how these women can think that this field is designed to oppress women. It was feminists who demanded, according to Erin Pizzey, who was, alive and active, politically active at the time. She said that the birth control pill was in the test phase, and feminists protested and lobbied like mad to have it rushed onto the market. And she said that there were women who died of deep vein thrombosis, women who died of breast cancer, women who died of stroke, of pulmonary embolus, all kinds of problems because the pill was rushed to market at the behest of feminists, right? It's so feminists obviously wanted this technology, right? And now you'll hear feminists saying, well, hormonal birth control fucks up women's hormones and it damages their bodies and it's like a patriarchal thing. Yeah, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the cause was. It doesn't matter who wanted it. It doesn't matter who demanded it. It doesn't matter whether it was women who wanted it in the first place and then it turned out to be not so great, right? It's all men's fault. All of it.
It makes almost as much sense as claiming that neurosurgery was invented so that men could get into your head.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out, because we were talking about various quotes, we like probably one of the most mainstream quotes that is not realized as being mainstream is Mary Koss's reasoning for why she defined rape to exclude male victims of female perpetrators. In the research that it has the most pull when it comes to deciding law and policy all over the world right now.
Yeah.
And that was her saying, although consideration of male victims is within the scope of the legal statutes, it is important to restrict the term rape to instances where male victims were penetrated by offenders. And then the next line, it is inappropriate to consider as rape, or as a rape victim, a man who engages in unwanted sexual intercourse with a woman. What feminist would ever, for 2 seconds, put up with rape being described as a woman engaging in unwanted sexual intercourse with a man? Ever. The moment you would attribute any agency whatsoever to a rape victim.
Active language versus passive language. And
you can't even...
Throughout all of her writing about male victims of rape, the language just gets more and more active through the paragraphs.
Yeah, that's one of the quotes that needs to be shoved down feminist throats. And yeah, they probably consider that rape too.
Karen, read your thing.
Okay, I got a thing.
Read it.
Okay. God damn it. So, how do I know feminism is a religion? Well, it can take 5 rapes and 2 sexual assaults, and through the power of the divine feminism and a wave of the hand and an iteration of the words listen and believe, it can turn that meager fare into a veritable feast of sexual violence that can serve thousands. This miracle is spectacular enough to pad the salaries and laid the tables of thousands of well-paid advocates, counselors, and lobbyists, and harvest votes by the hundreds of thousands for politicians who sing the appropriate hosanna. Like Jesus fed the multitude from 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish, feminism has managed to conjure into existence a pervasive rape culture out of such paltry nourishment as 80 reported sexual assaults at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities between 2011 and 2014. How does feminism perform such miracles? Through its mystical numbers. Not 666, but 12% and 1 in 5. A recent breakdown of feminism's own numbers by Mark J. Perry at the American Enterprise Institute is demonstrative of this extraordinary faculty of feminist, miraculous, magical arithmetic, a faith in which 2 plus 2 can indeed equal 5, or 94, or whatever number a feminist might wish or need it to equal. 1 in 5 is the proportion of college women who will be sexually assaulted during their 4-year undergrad. 12% is the percentage of sexually assaulted women who will report their assaults. At the University of Minnesota between 2011 and 2014, 80 people, and we will assume they were all women because faith does encourage charity, reported a sexual assault. If indeed this number represents only 12% of all assaults, then approximately 667 sexual assaults, reported and unreported, actually occurred at this university during this 4-year period. And yet what does feminism's other mystical, magical number, 1 in 5, tell us? Of the 26,000 female students on that campus in any given 4-year period, 5,200 will have been sexually assaulted. How can this be? How can 667 equal 5,200? How can the numbers play out the same at nearly every other school? Not 1 in 5, but anywhere from 1 in 20 to 1 in 80, using feminism's own magical numbers. How, I ask you, is this possible? Well, young ones, it takes faith. Faith in women's own personal stories and experiences, faith in the righteousness of the cause, and more than anything, faith in the pure, unblemished knowledge that even when you're wrong, you're right, that even when what you're saying is complete and utter bullshit, you're starting a necessary conversation for a noble and necessary cause.
Thank you, Karen. All
There you
right. I want to cede the floor to whoever wants to take it at this moment. Anyone? Anyone want to follow up? Everyone's too tired. Everyone's too in awe.
I think it's Common Core arithmetic.
I want to point something out because I keep hearing that 1 in 5 number lately. They had been using the 1 in 4 number and over again. Now the 1 in 5 number is the popular number. Do you know what else 1 in 5 is the proportion of? It's the proportion of men who were able to legally and financially and everything exercise a right to vote at the time that the suffragettes in the UK began their journey.
Oh, wasn't that nice?
1 in 5 men could vote. Suffragettes agitated for universal female suffrage.
Actually, they didn't agitate for universal female suffrage. Some of them agitated for 10-pound suffrage. They just wanted suffrage for rich men and women. Emmeline Pankhurst was one of them. She was like, oh, yeah, no, all those poor women and colored women, they can just, like, go fucking lick my asshole.
But she was perfectly happy to let them go to jail for her.
Oh, yes.
If that is, there was anything at all accurate in the suffragette movie. I went and watched that movie. I need therapy now.
Yeah.
But I finally went and watched that movie, and it was a piece of shit. But that was one thing that I noticed in it. She was celebrated as this great leader, but from the portrayal in that movie, and I'm going to have to look and see if it's actually true, she hid herself away and came out periodically to say some shit, and then would go back into hiding. And she let her minions, her activists that were listening to what she said and going out and doing things in the world for her, she let them, her disciples, go out and go to jail for her.
Yeah,
go on hunger strikes for her. And some of them did sentences for months and months for her while she stayed in hiding in her luxury.
Allison and I were talking. She was saying something about military, and the officers would, if there was like a shortage of food, the officers would ensure that the enlisted men would eat before the officer would then be able to eat, because he was in authority over them, but he also took responsibility for them and made sure that he responsibly assured their care, right, and their well-being. And this is like the opposite This is like the opposite of that. Like it's like the anti-masculinity. It's like it's like the cowardice. It's with great power comes great, like, going and hiding and letting other people pay your fucking debt to society.
Great privilege.
Great selfishness.
Yeah. And depending on whether a leader, a person in a leadership position is an actual leader or a leader of a cult, you'll see them go one way with that or the other. You'll see them dedicate themselves to the people that they're leading, or you'll see them use the people.
Well, didn't Jones, what's his name, at Jonestown, didn't he also at least drink the fucking Kool-Aid?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've actually read about that. I don't remember.
But I think he actually did, and I think that the Raelians, you remember them? They all drank poison fucking whatever and lay down in their bed because the spaceship was going to...
Oh, yeah.
Right? The leader joined them, right? I mean, he wasn't just like, oh yeah, now I'm going to like pack up all their shit in my freaking U-Haul and leave while they're all like clutching their stomachs and vomiting and dying. No, he as far as I know, he died along with them too, right? It's
Dr. Henry Armitage says no, he blew his brains out.
Did he? Oh, well, there you go.
He took a way that had the potential to be less painful. In other words.
Well, also more absolute.
Yeah, more absolute. He was definitely not coming back from that.
But
he would have been a feminist.
Like literally, it really is getting other people to pay your fucking fee. Mm-hmm. And that's not leadership. Like, how can this woman be admired?
Well, because feminism is a religion, and she is one of their saints. Her history has been whitewashed.
You know what? A saint? There's a requirement there. There's a requirement of personal sacrifice. There's a requirement often of being like pierced with arrows, and then when you don't die from the arrows, because God miraculously saved you, then the enemy beats you to death with clubs, right? Or
there's a requirement of having personal sacrifice attributed to you.
Yeah.
Now that's different, because having your religious fans, your followers attribute a personal sacrifice to you does not mean that it actually happened.
No, but
it doesn't have to be. And this is the thing. If with feminism, they have a habit of defining things based on their criteria. Abuse is abuse when men do it, but it's preemptive self-defense when women do it. Oppression is oppression when it happens to women, but it's privilege when it happens to men, or at least men are in charge of their own oppression and therefore responsible for it. So I would not be surprised if they considered her having to go into hiding in order to avoid being the person who went to jail for the things that people carried out in her name after listening to her speeches to be a sacrifice.
Good grief.
Yes, good grief. But let's get to the news item.
Okay.
Because I think we'll be good griefing and head desking quite a bit after this one.
Okay.
Whoa, it's a doozy. Yeah, it's at the end there.
It here. Scroll. Wait, I scrolled past it.
Oh, okay.
The Views Joy.
Yes.
Say her name. Is that Bear?
Let me take a look.
Bahar.
Yeah, I think it's
Sounds
Bahar.
Okay. It looks like Bahar. I'd vote for a rapist as long as they're liberal. Wait, we're missing something though, because there's another thing that hasn't been read, I think.
Oh yes, The Idealized Female and the Monstrous Men by Dr. O. Who's another.
You want me to read that first?
Yeah, let's do that first.
The idealized female as our one true God is weak and strong, helpless and capable, morally superior, and without any semblance of accountability or agency. In fact, it is not each or all of these qualities that make her our true overlord. It is her tendency to constantly flux between the yin and yang of these opposing traits. This makes her infallible in a profound way. The monstrous man is the devil, a violent rape machine who thinks nothing of causing women pain and seeing them patronized. If he protects her, it's because she's his prized possession. And if he dies for her, all he's doing is denying her the dignity of dying for herself. Both his love and his hatred for women combine to form his composite strategy for punishing women. That's a pretty good description of feminism.
Yeah, and it's strange qualities, because I always wondered, why would a god, like, now I'm referring to generally the one true God of a lot of Abrahamic faiths, why would a god need to be appeased by sacrifices? At one point he's all powerful, or she or it is all powerful, but at the same time he's sort of a bit of a child.
He's thirsty.
He's thirsty. He's got the thirst.
Well, it's been portrayed in more than one story where people get to their heaven and find out that their god is like a toddler who's just throwing temper tantrums.
Even the recent Russell Crowe Noah the Noah's Ark piece.
Well, my favorite portrayal of it actually is Eric the Viking, where the gods are all a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Well, it's the idea that the demigod, or basically what is the Christian god, he was born in a cloud and he couldn't see any other gods but him, so he's selfish and like a child.
I like, in Eric the Viking, I loved the Christian missionary who just, like, they get to Valhalla and he's just, like, walking through walls and shit because it doesn't exist.
It's not real.
It doesn't exist to him at all. So he's like, I don't see anything. Where are we? And then finally he's just like, I'm tired of this.
I want to go home.
I just want to go home.
And he saves them. I like the cloak invisible. That probably is my absolute favorite part of the movie. It strikes me as the way people think in general. Oh, you've given me this rule? I can live by it. Ha-ha! The rule! Wait, you mean this rule only applies under some circumstances? Shit!
Yeah.
The cloak you could see me the whole time? That's the cloak invisible only works on my father.
Yeah.
Also, I misspoke. It's demiurge, not demigod. My bad.
It was a funny movie. I loved how he's like the completely atypical Dane, right? He's like at the very start of the movie, he barges into the house with the woman and she's looking at him. He's like, "Oh, I gotta make sure that I, let the guys know I'm." Can you just like scream rape, right?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. He's like, what? And he's like, just, 'cause I gotta, the guys, right?
That would be a great movie for us to do on a Nerdcast.
I think so.
But this concept.
You should come on for it, Karen.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I totally would for that.
And this concept, though, of deity being childish and of the deity being contradictory and everything, it's perfect because it is present in quite a number of religions, where you get rules regarding how you're supposed to perceive deity and how you're supposed to talk about deity and what you're supposed to believe deity capable of. And everything that completely contradict each other depending on which aspect of the religion you're discussing or describing. And feminism does that precisely with women and men, in multiple ways, pretty much as described by Dr. O here.
Well, I don't know. Like, and you look at some of the things that would, that are said to like be of grievous offense to God. So grievous. Right? You take the Lord's name in vain, you're going to hell or whatever, right? And it just reminds me, like I was walking into the grocery store just like a few hours ago, and there's this woman kind of dragging her daughter along, right? Her daughter all in a snowsuit, right? And her daughter's just screaming, maybe like 2 years old or something, right? Just screaming at the top of her lungs. Like crying, and I'm looking at the mom, and she's just looking just long-suffering, and oh my God, my kid's just throwing a fit right now. And it's like 20 below, and I just want to get across the parking lot and into the store, right? And I realized that this kid was throwing a fit. She's like, I want gum! And she's like freaking out. She's just like, she's expending like 1,000 calories an hour pitching this fit because she wants gum. She wants gum, and she wants it now.
Mike.
In a way, it makes sense that God would be childish, because we look out at this universe and we see how mad and capricious it is. So why wouldn't we create a god or gods that act like children? Because I mean, you can't even figure out the math. There's irrational numbers everywhere, like pi and the golden ratio. So yeah, of course it's going to look. We're going to project something irrational onto the answer to everything. Which is why sort of polytheism makes sense. This might have been something I was thinking of saying earlier on, like the sort of animism that the ancient Greeks believed in. They didn't just believe in one god. They believed pretty much everything had a god. Everything was reducible to, levitatable to an essence. Sort of everything had something you could pray to. And the whole idea of the Greek gods was that they created humans by giving them the fire of the gods. And that's why they realized that sort of all humans possess the fire of the gods. They're just as capricious as the gods, and they're just as noble as the gods, men and women alike. They had female gods and male gods, and they were childish. They were exactly as childish as you would expect them to be. And then some people came along and said, no, the gods are not childish.
They're perfect.
There's only one God, as a matter of fact, and he's a man, and he knows everything there is to know about everything. That might just happen to mean you can blame men for everything.
The
foreseeable future. We'll see how that goes.
I think that the Greek gods and the Roman gods were a lot like sort of the races on Star Trek, right? Like, so you had all the different races that sort of embodied the different aspects of humanity, right? Like, so you had the Ferengi that were like, greed, or what does the one guy on YouTube call himself, Space Jew?
There's Klingons, the aggression.
Klingon, it's the warrior culture and the honor culture, and then there's the freaking Romulans. They're the imperialists.
Slytherin.
There's freaking like they
the logic.
Yeah, and the Cardassians, right?
Yeah, little blue guys that are mistrustful of everything. Forget their name.
The little sorry.
They're little blue guys. They have these like little thingy, the two prongs on their heads, and they're like all blue, and they're very just mistrustful and kind of jingoist.
Yeah, but I mean, like you have like these different alien races that seem to embody and like encapsulate certain fundamental aspects or flaws of humanity, right? And it's just like, oh, it's just perfect to showcase this one thing about humans, right? So yeah,
and it's kind of funny if you go through various cultures that had multiple deities for different things, and there was always the god of this and the god of that. There always seems to be a theme. They all had gods of the same things. They just had different names and sometimes different characteristics. Some gods were more stern and strict, and other gods were more free and so on, depending on the culture. But it is interesting to see it narrow down. I would point out one of the interesting contradictory things about the Christian religion is that people consistently refer to deity as male, but then there is a verse in the Bible that says, in heaven they are neither male nor female. So God and all the angels get referred to as male, but the Bible clearly says there's no sex. They're not sexed. So obviously they're not male or female. They can't be male. But that's one of many things that, people, if you get yourself tied up in doctrine, that's one of the reasons why, or in small points of dogma, it's one of the reasons why religions have to be taken on faith, faith is a fundamental aspect of that separates religion from scientific knowledge. You
It's
can't
also
have that kind of contradiction in scientific knowledge. You can't have that kind of contradiction in any system that is evidence and fact based. But
it's also
if we've learned anything from feminists, particularly their invasion of Wikipedia with Wiki Project Feminism, they don't like things that are fact based.
no, they don't. But if you look at the whole idea that angels had no sex, that just is like the perfect reason why Tilda Swinton was the best angel ever in any movie ever.
The only kind of feminist they don't like is the factual feminist.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny because
Namely Ms. Summers, yes.
you have the contradiction of deity and angels being referred to as male, and the verse that says in heaven they are neither male nor female. Then you have the statement that there were giants in those days being attributed to the sons of heaven having been with the daughters of men, having had sex with the daughters of men. So heaven's full of, and our Bible's full of interesting little contradictory tidbits.
Huh.
How did they do that if they were not sexed?
They didn't got no penises.
Yeah, it was like osmosis.
It was just like they grew a thing out of one side of their head, and they opened a hole in another side of their head like slugs do. And then they each stuck their thing into
They were
the
pretending.
hole of the other.
They were pretending to hold a watermelon. That explains everything.
Okay.
It makes everything work. Okay, so on to the news. Because this is getting silly.
In other news,
In other news, and thanks Anna for looking this up. It's the pronunciation is Behar. So the View's Joy Behar. I'd vote for a rapist as long as they're liberal. News by Sean Jacobson. On The View this Thursday, panelist Joy Behar stated that a presidential candidate's prior conduct would not influence how she votes. She states that even if said candidate was accused of sexual assault and rape, she would still vote for her. Joy refers to accusations previously leveled at President Bill Clinton, stating it's her policies that really matter, and that to her, this is more important than anything that Bill Clinton did or didn't do, because it's what she's going to vote for. Joy, one of the original panelists of The View, also drew comparisons to Teddy Kennedy and the Chappaquiddick incident, in which the former senator left the scene of a crash in which his colleague died. Joy stated that even though a girl was abandoned and subsequently drowned, women still voted for Teddy Kennedy because he voted for women's rights. None of Joy's fellow panelists appeared to object to her opinion of voting based on policy, regardless of a candidate's questionable moral character. So are we now like merging Bill and Hillary Clinton into one? Is this like Billary Clinton now, or I'm kind of confused. Well, I mean, with Joy talking about this, Bill Clinton's conduct wouldn't affect. Of course, Bill Clinton's conduct doesn't really. I will agree with her on one thing. Hillary Clinton should be judged on what Hillary Clinton has done in her history, which, to be honest, is a much meaner way to judge Hillary Clinton than any judgment she would take on Bill Clinton's behalf. Because Bill Clinton was accused of philandering and possibly rape, although it was never proved. And none of the allegations against him were proved in court except that he was a philanderer, which pretty much makes him fit in with all of Washington for the most part, Washington, D.C. for the most part.
Yeah, the French were just laughing. The French were laughing over the brouhaha over that.
Yeah, the biggest thing.
Why is everyone so hit up about this?
The biggest thing that he did wrong was lie in court. And that got buried under everybody's titillation and shock that he actually did things that human beings do when they get into a position of power, and don't have enough moral fiber to prevent themselves from behaving, in ways that are socially unacceptable, or socially not accepted, or whatever. But Hillary has a history of deaths that follow her that are questionable. Hillary has a client that was accused of raping a 12-year-old girl, where she broke attorney-client privilege in the case. Hillary has all kinds of scandals in her background, financial scandals. She's got this email scandal. She's got the Benghazi scandal. There are some serious questions, regarding her credibility.
Well,
There are some
Benghazi.
serious questions regarding her morality. There are some serious questions regarding her ability to actually, because like if you can't handle 2 separate email accounts, that's fine. I mean, you can't handle 2 separate email accounts, but don't tell us you can run the country.
Well, honestly, the Benghazi thing and the email thing, those the email thing was illegal. She was not allowed to have an email account that didn't go through government servers.
And more classified stuff is coming out. She sent classified emails through that server. This is like a really serious thing. I don't think people realize how bad that was.
It's discovered that she has her own fucking server for her email instead of going through the one she's supposed to go through by law, right? Then she deletes everything, just shred everything, right? And somehow, this woman, like, she's literally, she's corrupt as fuck. This isn't about, like, banging your secretary or, like, sticking a cigar up her cooch, right? This is about actual fucking corruption in the course of the duties to which you have sworn an oath of service.
This is a situation in which if Hillary Clinton was a man, she would be getting compared throughout news media
To Nixon.
to not just Nixon, to mafia leaders. She's a thug. Hillary Clinton is a thug.
Not to mention, she fucking threw heavy objects at her husband's head. Like, there's more and more fucking people coming out of the woodwork. Aides, Secret Service agents, former Secret Service agents, former aides, her personal assistants, whatever, right? All of these people coming out and saying, yeah, you know what? Bill Clinton's fucking press secretary's assistant or whatever, right? She said, at a press conference, she said, oh, the president cut himself shaving, right? And because she hadn't had a look at the injury yet.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, he cut himself shaving, and then she saw it when he walked out. She's like, holy fucking shit, there's no way anybody's going to believe what I said, right? That he cut himself shaving because he had a big, huge fucking claw mark down his neck, right? From his fucking wife flipping her shit on him, right?
Yeah.
Thrown things at him. One of the maids at the White House freaking went in to make the bed and found it covered in blood.
Yep.
It wasn't Hillary's blood.
This is a situation where if she was a man, nobody would be defending her.
If she was
she would not be a candidate.
Football player, she would be like having to move to Nepal.
Yeah, she'd be out of there.
That press.
But we have people making excuses for every single one of her scandals. We have people making excuses for her abusive behavior, making up shit about people who contradict her. This is like, the only reason that she is where she is right now is because of her sex.
Well, and because of who she was married to.
And because of who she was married, which is also because of her sex.
Yeah.
So Hillary is the ultimate expression, really, of toxic feminism. And getting a thug on the road to the White House because she's a woman. And yeah, I got people in the chat saying Trump is a joke, but I'll tell you what. A joke in the White House would be far less dangerous
Yeah.
than an unaccountable, unscrutinized thug.
We thought Bush was
Keep an
the
eye
devil.
on Trump. Yeah, like at least people could criticize Bush. At least Bush was not non-falsifiable. At least you could say, you could go on national television and say Bush is stupid and not get crucified for
Yeah,
it.
you could be like nuclear.
Yeah, even if you didn't have anything to base it on. And to be honest, he was fun to make fun of,
Of course.
Still is fun to make fun of. But Hillary is an untouchable thug. That's 1,000 times more dangerous, 1,000,000 times more dangerous than a joke that people are going to criticize left and right. I want somebody in office that everybody can come down on and everybody can hate on and everybody can say, you can't do that, without having a thought-terminating cliche that he can throw up in everybody's faces to stop the criticism and stop the scrutiny and prevent himself from being held accountable. I want him to be able to go to jail if he breaks the law. I want him to be able to get taken out of office if he violates his oath. Don't want another person in office in charge of my country and my life who cannot be questioned because he owns a thought-terminating cliche. And Hillary would be the next one. If we've got one in there now that has a thought-terminating cliche that can be thrown up, if you criticize him, he can claim that you're doing it because he's black. That is, and it needs to stop. Not that we need to not have another black person in office, but that we need to not have thought-terminating cliches be used to prevent world leaders from being criticized and from being scrutinized and from being held accountable for their actions. And Hillary Clinton uses women that way. I am a woman. You can't criticize me as a thought-terminating cliche to prevent people from questioning her actions and holding her accountable for her behavior. We can't have another 4 to 8 years of that, or we will not have a United States anymore.
I just think Trump should actually pull a Caitlyn Jenner.
Maybe he should.
He should. He absolutely should. He should be like, yeah, no, I identify as a woman now. I've always felt this way.
I'm Donald Trump.
To be honest, I don't think he needs to. I think people are so fed up with our establishment politicians.
Yeah.
On our incumbents, because he's really establishment too. He's a rich guy. But
that was the reasoning that led to Sarah Palin. I swear. They thought, hey, what if we throw in a female vice president? Everyone will vote for us then. And it almost fucking worked.
They had to find one that sounded like everything she said was in response to a string being pulled in her back.
Okay. Brian, you had something to say.
Oh, just buckle up, buckaroos. That's all.
What?
You finally joined us.
You're so fucking late, Brian. What the fuck? And don't go giving me any bullshit about you being on a plane or any shit like that, because fucking fuck.
What did I miss?
Oh, you missed the whole fucking show, friend.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done. We're I'm skating
guys,
towards the show.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Yes, you can ask a question. Shut up, Karen.
That is a question.
Have you guys talked about how
It's 2016.
How atheists how people in the atheist community, while denouncing religion, and often from a place of a great deal of anger, or at least they're just really aggressive about how they oppose religion, they embrace things like feminism as with the same kind of fervor and zealotry. And it's almost like they leave one religion for another religion. Like look at Atheism Plus, for example, which is basically I think it's a good example of that. Have you guys talked about that? How attractive that is to atheists, or not all of them, but people like P.Z. Myers and.
They go from one excuse to hate men to another excuse to hate men, basically.
I don't think that that's necessarily what it is. The hatred of men is a nice warm blanket that makes certain beliefs more palatable than others. But I don't think that that's why they've glommed onto feminism. They've glommed onto feminism because it gives them what religion would give them, right? Which is sort of this. It's an ideology, it's a worldview, it's a cause, it's a purpose, it's all of those things. It's a why and a how. It's all of those things that religion offered, right? But it dresses itself up as, it has statistics and it has, it's a field of academia and, there are scholarly works and it's an entire field of philosophy. It's not a religion and there's no deity there, right? So they don't see it as a faith-based belief. They see it as
it's like a moral. How some people.
It's a moral framework for them to.
Yeah,
it gives people an identity. Is what it does.
Well, here's the thing.
We seek an identity, and it exploits that seeking for an identity. Your victims and your heroes,
I don't think it's just about the identity. I think that it is largely based on society's gynocentric attitude to begin with. And here's where this comes from, okay? Feminism has all those things, but so does vaccine refusal advocacy. But if you scratch the surface of what I would refer to as evangelical vaccine refusal advocacy, which is ridiculous, it falls apart. You find out all of the flaws in the so-called research, and you find all of the flaws in the arguments. You find all of the flaws in the statements. And this is the same thing with feminism. If you scratch the surface of feminism, you find all of the flaws. You find all of the bad research. You find all of the bad definitions. You find all of the conclusions that are drawn based on nothing, or that are contradictory to the information that they've gathered and things like that.
Yeah.
The difference is because feminists exploit gynocentrism.
Yes.
Nobody bothers to scratch the surface.
That's right.
People who are anti-feminist.
That's right.
Or people who are and because society has that attitude so ingrained, it's ingrained in the same way as "don't hit a girl" is ingrained. Even people who are strongly skeptical, even people who adhere to a system of skeptical. Skeptical evaluation of everything, and their refusal, or their rejection, I should say, of religion is based on skepticism. Even then, there will be some who are susceptible to the thought-terminating cliche of you can't criticize the feminine. You can't criticize advocacy that is given in the name of women. And that's one of the big reasons why this community falls for shit like that. Yes. Because they can't criticize women.
Yeah, but it's also, I think that people have, even without, even people who've given up on the idea of a supernatural deity, people have a sort of innate tendency to sanctify objects. They have sacred objects that are not allowed to be criticized, and that sacred object can even be science, right? And I know enough about the scientific community. I mean, I dated a research oncologist for a while. He said, "Oh, we have this, $2.5 million grant to give, and we gave it to a woman because, women in science, and everybody was talking her up, and the next best candidate was a dog with a degree in Spanish. So what are you gonna do, right?" He's like, her ideas were bullshit. Like, she was completely freaking didn't know what she was doing, but she was already making money on it, right? She'd already, written a business plan and the whole bit, right, to profit off of her prostate cancer drug, right, that was going to revolutionize everything. And we had this money that we had to give away, and that's how it goes, and oh my goodness, and in the high technology sector, if you use a glorified cheese grater to, break, magnesium oxide particles into like microscopic or nanoscopic particles, right? And then you just add them to house paint, and oh my goodness, that's like a major freaking innovation. No, it's not, and it's not worth $1 million grant, right? Like science, even in science, so much of it is bullshit. So much of it is fucking bullshit.
I can attest to that as well. Well, not just bullshit, just sloppy.
Yeah, sloppy and like money grubbing. And oh, low-hanging fruit. Oh, I improved the efficiency of this by 0.7%, right? Where's my $500,000?
Yeah, and I found that was true when, and I'm probably going to get slammed for this, because I was taking, for a while I was taking a dual degree in philosophy and science, and I was also taking some computer science courses, and I had to go to the philosophy department to, actually no, this was after I took that, some philosophy courses. I had to go back to the philosophy department to take some logic courses, predicate logic and advanced logic and stuff like that. And I would be talking with the professors that, and they would make assertions. Now, whether or not materialism is correct, there are assertions that really do not follow from the things that I was learning, the hard sciences, the mathematics, logic. They don't make any assertion about a worldview. They do not prove a particular worldview. They don't disprove a particular worldview, but they don't prove it either.
They just exist.
They're just explanations for phenomena. And so I would be listening to these professors who were, like not the logic professors, but the ones who were doing more, I don't know, epistemological or like historical philosophy and shit like that. And they would, or at least one, maybe I shouldn't say professors, I shouldn't malign the department, but they were talking about how, mathematics or science or hard sciences prove X. And I'm like, that doesn't prove, nothing that you're saying is proved by what the courses that I'm taking in hard science.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You're just talking out of your ass. I never said that because I didn't want to get an F, but I was thinking it very hard.
Science is much more murky than scientists would like you to believe. I mean, like my boyfriend has sort of said that the way it's taught in universities, whether it's engineering or physics or whatever, there is this sort of jargonized form of like biblical Latin that they use, and they don't really spend a lot of time trying to explain the concepts. And here's the really horrible thing is if you understand the concept, right, then even if you forget the process, right, and I forgot the process of converting decimals to fractions, right, because I'm 45 fucking years old. When was the last time I had to do that? High school, right? I'd forgotten that, and my 13-year-old comes up to me and says, I need to figure out how to convert decimals to fractions. And I immediately knew how to do it because I understood the underlying concept, right? I understood the basics, and I could extrapolate from the basics to figure out how to do it, right? And it might not be the exact way his teacher would teach him to do it, but it's a way that he will remember because I taught him the concept. 0.42 over 1. Okay, then add however many zeros you need to even things up and make everything a whole number, and then blah blah blah, right? That's how you do it. A lot of these science courses in university are not interested in teaching you the concepts of things or having you understand the entire picture. They're about teaching you the process of figuring it out. Right, the process not of figuring out the concept, but the process of figuring out this specific answer in this specific case. Right?
Well, for the longest time, schools have been teaching people how to just memorize or regurgitate to please the teacher and to please the test results. That's actually been my issue with school. because they do not teach understanding, I have that brain type that it leaves my brain if I don't understand it. It's fucking gone. It's not staying there.
That's
and nobody teaches understanding.
It's my boyfriend too, in a nutshell, and me. In a nutshell, if I can't find a way to conceptualize it and like fit it into my matrix of how I understand the world, then there's no point in teaching me how to, understand the process, or how to memorize the process, because it just won't stick with me. But if you teach me the underlying concept, you don't have to teach me the process. I'll figure it out on my own.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. We do deify scientists and science in some ways, but it's still done by people who have frailties and moral failings, and get attached to their theories the way you might get attached to an arm or a leg, and they don't want to let go of it.
Yeah, look at Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're basically like they're like prophets now. They can speak on anything, stuff that's outside of their their area of knowledge, whatever it is they know. But it's often because people want to hear them say stuff that satisfies their bias, whatever it's about. So.
Well, remember, feminism is still supposedly a part of social sciences, so you gotta that's a huge failure.
Yeah.
Peer review. That shit still exists.
To be honest, though, the failings of feminist science are sort of peppered throughout the social sciences. Yeah. And I mean, it's not all bad, but there's enough that is it's not just bad, but it's condoned. That you can't trust any research that comes out of there without reading it for flaws. You can't just trust, you can't read the abstract and say, oh, these conclusions are interesting, I think I'll repeat them, because you can't be sure that they didn't base their conclusion on interpreting things, that they weren't justified to interpret the way they were interpreting them based on the information they had.
Always go to methods and actual data, raw data and methods.
You always have to read. This is a problem within society. We do this. We deify people. We act like people are flawless. Like, you won't hear me looking at any of the candidates really and saying they're flawless. I mean, I wouldn't have called Trump a clown if I thought he wasn't flawless. I wouldn't have agreed with the person that said that. That's not flawless. But you can't have. We have to get past the point where we're deifying people. We have to get past the point where we're treating people as unquestionable for any reason. That's why I was talking about thought-terminating cliches earlier. And this isn't used by everybody. There have been female candidates. There have been minority candidates that have not used their characteristics, their various characteristics that can be used as thought-terminating cliches by guilt-tripping people based on PC culture. There have been people that haven't used that. And of course they get eliminated, because they get questioned. And hell, like Herman Cain. Herman Cain was basically booted out of Republican primaries for reasons that, had he been a Democrat, the Democrats would have defended him for if he was, their favorite candidate, because they defended Clinton for him. And they went after him for that and blackmailed him out. And he didn't come back and say, you did this because I'm black. They did it because he was Republican. They did it because they didn't like his ideas. They didn't want him to have a chance to express them, So he didn't use the thought-terminating cliche. And he could probably have fought his way back if he had been able to tough out the gauntlet of criticism for adultery. But he didn't want to subject his family to that, so he didn't do it. But there have been candidates, and there can be candidates, there can be politicians who don't use that. They just have to work a lot harder to earn their place in politics than the ones who do.
Or they have to be someone like Trump and just show up at the right time, willing to fucking flap his gums and say whatever shit just presents itself in his head.
They have to show up when people are sick and tired of the bullshit and be charismatic enough to rise to the top by offending everybody equally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're being asked how is Trump a clown? he says the things that he can dig up that are the most not offensive, because I don't know that I would actually call everything that he said offensive, but things that get under people's skin the most politically correct hornet's nest kicking, politically incorrect hornet's nest kicking that can possibly be done without getting tarred and feathered and run out on a rail. That's how he's a clown in the same way that I don't know that internet trolls are clowns, and that's why when he first started running and he first started doing this shit, that's why I said I wonder if he's trolling. But I'm starting to think, now I'm pretty sure he's serious, and I will be surprised if he drops out.
I think he's sort of like a stand-up comedian running for president, right? And he's a stand-up comedian who's never actually done stand-up before, so he kind of sucks at it, but he's good enough at it that we can all just kind of go, yeah, you're right. Oh,
okay.
The problem with planes is, oh.
If I may.
Another question from chat. Theo asked, oh shoot, it's gone up too high. Are you saying that Democrats forced Herman Cain out of the Republican race? No, Democrats manipulated Republicans into forcing Herman Cain out of the race by finding their trigger.
Okay. Yeah, I just leave for a little bit, and everybody, it's like it goes from feminist as a religion to Trump. And then it's, okay, you guys are like a bag of squirrels.
I'll bet that out of all of the candidates that are running right now, Trump is the one feminists would hate the most.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for that reason alone, it probably is very tempting, right?
I don't even think Trump cares about winning. I think he just wants to expose the media.
I almost
he's done that.
As American.
Yeah.
Vote for him.
I think he cares, but I don't know that, like, if he lost, it wouldn't matter.
You guys ever see Brewster's Millions?
No.
Oh my God, you must watch. It's a Richard Pryor movie. It is a fabulous Richard Pryor movie. And the premise of the movie is that he has to spend a huge sum of money in a short amount of time, and he goes through this whole process and discovers that he's not only not spent the money, he's made some of it back by accident. And so he starts a political campaign. Because you can waste a lot of money on a political campaign, but his political campaign, it's geared towards identifying corruption, and so he doesn't try to win the position because he can't have a salary come out of it, or he loses. Yes, it has John Candy in it. From another question from chat, but he runs as none of the above. He has to spend $30 million in 30 days, which, by today's standards it seems a lot easier. This was back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So back in the 80s, he had to spend $30 million in 30 days. And in this campaign, though, the entire campaign is all about nobody getting elected because nobody deserved the office. And the media is corrupt, and the candidates are corrupt, and everything is, it's a great flick. I recommend watching it, and everybody should watch it before this election. Not necessarily the primary, but the final election.
Yeah.
That gives you plenty of time.
All right. And with that recommendation, let's go to the next item.
Die.
It's time to die. Wait.
Can I get it?
Go ahead.
Thoughts will be lost like tears in rain.
Feminist tears.
Praise Germaine Greer.
Male tears in rain.
Praise Germaine Greer. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, it is...
Gloria Steinem be praised.
Gloria Steinem... Gloria Steinem be praised.
Ah, women.
Betty Friedan. Not forget the ugly one.
Saint Bell of Hooks.
Wait, there's only one?
There are many of them.
Yeah, no, but Betty Friedan.
Behavior counts, they're all ugly.
Feminism is a religion of peace, guys. Of peace.
It's a piece of religion.
Only if you gag them so they can't talk.
Oh my God.
Okay, squirrels.
Honestly, was it Robin Morgan's husband? I think it was Robin Morgan's husband. of many years said to men collectively, whatever you do, don't marry a feminist.
I would say the same thing to women
He
collectively.
didn't file for divorce, though.
That's because he was
because-
married to a feminist. She
Probably
knew the
because he
system
was
better than
terrified. He was terrified.
Hey, yeah.
By the great seer Melody Hensley. Are you ready to?
Oh my God. May she have many, many military men fired and drummed out
Yes,
in forces.
she is the queen of triggers. Allison, are you gonna sign us out? I'm just talking right now to fill in the dead air. Allison, did we lose her?
No, you haven't lost me.
Okay, I thought you got so frustrated. I miss you, Allison.
I miss you too, Brian.
I don't miss any
I
of
miss
y'all.
you, man.
Well, I really missed Karen. Oh, I was up there for like 10 days and no Karen.
I'm sorry. Literally, we have like a car that
Excuses.
tires, and we have one car that's stuck a block away from the house. Right, I had to have my two boys push it back to the curb because it once I lost momentum, it wasn't going to go any further. It actually burned like an inch deep, 2-inch deep, frickin' in the ice, right? Inch deep welts in the ice from spinning the tires, right? So I had my boys push it back toward the curb, and I just parked it and I left it. It's like a block away from my house, right? So I have no car right now. My boyfriend's taking my car to work and back. I have no car, and the city, okay, Mayor Don Iveson, who, when he was running for election, during the "Don't Be That Girl" poster campaign put on by Men's Rights Edmonton, called us morally indefensible and absolutely horrible people, right? Okay? He ran on a platform of, we need to look after the roads, right? So the roads in my neighborhood are a skating rink. They have not been plowed. They have not been sanded. Any sand on the road fell off of cars as they were driving.
My dog smells faggotry at work.
I am like, are you fucking serious? And you know what it is? You know what it is? They spent the entire snow removal budget on this stupid new rapid transit line that they decided that they were gonna run that thing because they wanted to get NAIT, the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, and Grant MacEwan on the same transit line, right? So they decided they were going to run it through one specific spot, right? It was already the worst spot for traffic in the fucking universe. A mall on one side of the road, a major hospital on the other side of the road, 4 traffic lights within 2 city blocks, right? And in the middle of it, a road coming in diagonally, crossing over this, right? And they're going to put above ground fucking LRT tracks there. And then when they were testing
rail transit, by the way, that's what LRT stands for everybody who has no fucking clue what Karen is ranting about right now.
And by the way, Karen, I know why there's no sand on your street.
It's a subway, but above ground. But literally, okay.
No,
So
It's in all the feminist vaginas.
they're
It's
testing.
all stuck in Jessica Valenti's vagina.
There you go. There you go. They're testing this fucking subway track, right? They're testing the boom gates, right? And they have people in ambulances sitting at the fucking traffic lights, the 4 sets of traffic lights in 2 city blocks with railroad tracks right in the middle of them, right? Right at the entrance of a hospital. People sitting for 20 minutes in an ambulance at a fucking boom gate and red light.
Okay, dare I ask why?
They spent all the money to plow my fucking street on that fucking bullshit.
On the trail, on the light rail transit.
Yeah. Light rapid fucking rail transit.
All right.
All right.
Okay, the appalling state of roads in Edmonton, where Karen lives,
Don Iveson
has
called
to be.
me a misogynist. He called me a misogynist. He won't fucking plow my street.
Well, maybe because he thinks you're a misogynist.
Well, he won't plow any street. And you know, I actually drove out to like St. Albert to feed my boyfriend's coworkers' cats, right? Me and him drove out last night. All of their fucking streets are plowed.
Okay, Karen, I'm gonna get your squirrel ass back in the bag.
Okay.
All right.
I think I got it all out.
Yeah, good.
I'm really mad about this though.
I understand.
Mm.
Well, next time we're
Mine is
like,
20 and I have to walk.
Okay, Karen.
next time Mike wants to come down, I'll try to coordinate with him, and we'll get drunk at Karen's place.
Yes.
What do you think, Mike? Are you awake?
Oh, me, Mike. Oh, hell yeah. I'll drink anyway.
That's an easy sell there. I know.
And,
Come to London,
guys.
everyone. So we
And
can all
speaking
drink.
of easy sells, they say that the reasonable man changes to suit the world, and the unreasonable man changes the world to suit himself. Therefore, all progress is made by the unreasonable man. However, before that progress can be made, the unreasonable man has to sell that change. Look around you. Think about the story of the hero saving the damsel. It underlies so much of our entertainment and our propaganda because it's comfortable. It's familiar. It makes men feel powerful and women feel valued. That story of the hero saving the damsel from certain doom, gives us all a warm, fuzzy feeling deep inside. But what we're trying to sell at Honey Badger Radio is recognition of men's vulnerabilities and the necessity of women stepping up to the plate and taking responsibility for that vulnerability. We're trying to sell the exact opposite of what sells nearly everything, from charity to games to clickbait to government programs to you name it. And the only thing our story has going for it is truth. But truth is ugly, it's painful, and it's a damn hard sell. And this truth is not just a damn hard sell, it's near unsaleable. Screw trying to sell freezers to Inuit. We're trying to sell the most unsaleable concept in the history of humanity. But there have been plenty of unsaleable concepts in history. In fact, I think those unreasonable men who sold the world an unsaleable concept were less unreasonable, because what they sold was some of the most amazing solutions in history, and more damn determined. I think men's rights can sell. I know I can sell it, because like those unreasonable men, I am damn determined to do it. I've staked my livelihood on selling the unsaleable concept of men's rights. In some ways, I staked my family's livelihood on it. Like I said, I'm pretty damn determined to sell it. And let's face it, if you're here and listening, you're damn determined too. Determined to face down discomfort, determined to disregard pain, determined to face the truth. You know the truth is ugly, but it's also beautiful and profound and liberating. So what are you going to do with that determination? What are you going to stake to make this change happen? Are you going to help me sell men's rights to the world? Say yes. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Say yes.